Welcome to the Curmudgeon, number 102. Several interesting things to talk about this evening. We'll start with a comment about what used to be one of my favorite channels on cable, and that's the History Channel. And it says, History Channel hasn't covered history in a long, long time. And yes, isn't that sad? I still watch a few things on History Channel, I admit it. Watch isn't always the best word to say. I have them on when I'm often doing other things, paying attention to it and something else. Pickers, American Pickers, I like that. It's because my dad was a picker before they were called pickers, and I used to go out and pick with him. I like... for some reason, I've been watching Forged in Fire. I like seeing how metal is worked. They make historical weapons, so that's a slim hook, but they got it. I like a lot of procedurals. I like watching how they cut logs on steep mountains, and I like Gold Rush and Bering Sea Gold, and I like procedurals. But back to the History Channel. I just finished up with the last season of Vikings because next Wednesday the new one starts. And that certainly fits under the banner of the History Channel. But no, they got a lot of stuff. I don't know, Ancient Aliens, that's purported history. Oak Island, that thing's #1 cable original show on cable, whatever. You know, they have a million. It's the everybody gets a trophy thing. Everybody has a distinction. But anyway, they're very popular, and it's supposed to be, you know, digging down this historical thing where there's treasure. But anyway, you're right. History Channel doesn't do much about history anymore, sadly to say. Okay, now here's a good one. I wonder how a Bullette would fare pitted against a giant cockroach, given proportions, same weight. I'd take bets on the cockroach. Well, I'd take your money. Given a cockroach of the same size as the Bullette, doesn't stand a chance. #1, the cockroach's mouth parts are not nearly as awe-inspiring and crunchy as Bullette's pincher-like jaws that would take giant gouts out of the chitin of the cockroach. Snap legs off just like that. The cockroach simply does not have the mouth parts to successfully kill a Bullette of the same size. The Bullette would just simply eat him alive at first until he died, and then he'd continue eating him. That without a sting or some sort of specialty duper weapon, not a contest. And the chitin of the cockroach, even giving the greater size and everything, is nowhere near going to stand up to the armor class of the Bullette. So I'd take your money. I'd even give you odds. Too bad we can't figure it out, huh? Let's do it in real life. Okay. This is a real long one with a bunch of stuff in it, so I may stop a few times. Level creep and God mode video games, ultra high level player characters, ego bolstering, vicarious imaginations gone wild, etc. Okay, yeah, you're talking about extremes. If it's a consensus of the players to have all the characters over the top superpowers, a wise, witty DM with a sense of poetic justice gives them exactly the kind of equal and opposite opponent of challenge. Absolutely. Fundamental principle of DMing. If you can't die, there's no challenge. You might as well be out trick-or-treating. Hi, give me all your gold. Here's my bag. Okay. Right. Okay. So your players, and they get tougher and they continue advancing, etc. Fine. You just give them tougher opponents. If you're designing an adventure, you look at the average hit points of the party that you're designing it for, their average armor classes, and then you pit them against several times in proportion those type of foes, not all at once. But if you're going to have a multi-part, go find this, and then you got to go find that, and then you find out, ooh, there's something over here. Each time, the first challenge can be lesser, but there's a good chance they'll acquire a little damage along the way. If you're planning an adventure that's going to take days, then you may want to take a lot of damage so that there's some healing to do. If you want to look at it purely cynically, the challenge should be not getting whittled down so that there's still most of you there at the end. That's their challenge. Yours should be to find a fair method to whittle them down. If they're not clever, if they're not smart, if they don't play well, not just whittle down for the sake of whittling down, that's hardly fair. But there's always an overarching theme or ethos to an adventure. And if there's no challenge, there's no reward. Let's see what else this respondent had to say. Okay, yes. I have fond memories of this guy in our group. We were all barely 12 at the time. A pompous peer with this ultra 20th plus level paladin named Bill in AD&D first edition, who had at least 21% of all 21 plus of all 6 stats, minus 10 armor class, the best, shining lily white sword of puritanical prick power, etc., etc., underestimating and trying to stomp and crush this ridiculous message of, oh, all right, let's see, I gotta I gotta figure out if this guy went on. Okay, well, okay, he's remembering this guy. And then it said, underestimating and trying to stomp and crush this ridiculous message of this tiny little bitch nobody gnome, master thief, illusionist NPC, who had this retractable scorpion stinger helmet with a lethal venom that sent the paladin back to some sanctimonious dorkdom of somewhere like Kolob from the Mormon pantheon. Well, that's a way to deal with an ultra high level character. Or you get them all and you send them into the tomb of elemental evil, and that will surely whittle them down. The best TPKs, in my opinion, are when you croak the last 2 or 3 in the last encounter. The rest have died along the way. Though, killing them all in one big fell swoop is fun too. I've had it both ways. Done it both ways, I should say. Okay. Now, he goes on to make the point that whipping up these super high level characters and that is a lot of fun. It's explosive release. Okay. And I agree. There's no reason. You can have a whole different set of characters and you play in this fun level. You can go play a superhero game or a mutant game or something like that. I understand it's fun to do that. All right. Then he goes on to some stuff about a guy named David Brocky, who I don't know. I don't know who he is, in a punk rock band, GWAR, and the origins of Odorous Orungus. David Brocky. what dorky nerd social pariah wouldn't give his blank to have this David Brockie as a dungeon master? Well, apparently, I guess all of them would. I don't know. Yeah, there's an appeal to that type of that kind of campaign when it's that type of campaign, when everybody's big and shiny and glorious. That's great. It can be fun. That's why Frank Menzer did the BECME and the super high rules for super high level characters to go and challenge the very gods themselves. Somebody wanted me to post a pair of my dice. These dice I'm looking for. If I knew I know where they are, but they're too far away to walk over and give you that much dead air time. But I've shown them literally to every dice seller in the industry over the last 10 years, and nobody's found them. I have a suspicion they're from England, but I've shown them to several English dealers, and they have never seen anything like them before. Here's a cute one. May your dice edges remain sharp is a saying or blessing I remember from the early 80s. Well, that was a nice thing to say to anybody, because God knows the dice edges didn't stay very sharp, did they? And yeah, like I've said before, the old dice wore off quickly. You wanted a fair roll. Everybody wanted a fair roll. If everybody used the same dice, that's fair. All right. When I run, they're admittedly they're board type games, but when I run those types of games at cons, I bring a big thing of dice, and everybody uses those dice, and then nobody can say anything's funny or anything. I've always found. If I were a sociologist 150 years from now studying the gaming phenomenon, I couldn't help but notice the bizarre, integral, mystical position that dice have. We talk to our dice, we name our dice. We curse our dice, we bless our dice. Every time we roll dice across the table for something big, our heart stops momentarily, all because of those dice. And when you think of where dice came from, the original dice were knuckle bones of sheep, and they were used for runic divinations. And then later gambling, of course. Gambling always comes up. But our reverence towards, our feelings towards dice, we all have way more dice than we need. I can't even say how many more I have. And I don't buy them anymore. They're given to me, and I don't collect them. I accumulate them. But as a sociologist in the not so distant future, this cult of gaming relies on dice, elements of chance that we fondle and caress and hold in our hands. And I even wrote a thing decades ago about dice lice that live in the bottoms of the pips, and if your dice lice are aligned with you and you treat them well, they'll run to the sides that you need, so you get the numbers that you want. It was all completely tongue-in-cheek, but it's all plausible enough that we all wish it were true. Anyway, we have a thing for dice. Let's see, where did I get distracted on that? Oh, dice edges remain sharp. Okay, next one. In the trilogy, Pippin and Merry are carried off by the orcs. The wounds are treated with some salve. I decided I'd call that Cellar juice twisting the letters around from seared, but I also treated it like a drug, so that the orcs would actively seek wounds, including fighting amongst themselves, so long as they still had supplies of that left. So a mission back to camp where they still had plenty of supplies, there would be more infighting going on, so as to consolidate the glory for the returning warriors. Then I decided to make it addictive, so that if other healing wasn't available and the party had slain an orc shaman, there would be this highly coveted, rarely known about, not many orc slaves live to tell the tale, boxes of mysterious red healing goo. Except that along with the wound healing rapidly into a scar and the temporary boost to constitution, and supposedly charisma in the form of machismo, after the third use of it, a saving throw is required DC 12 every next time. And then withdrawals and many other factors come into play, diced for results. Well, number one, I salute the thinking that went into this. I truly do. I'm not being at all facetious. Okay, how did Merry and Pippin get healed? Okay, and I know how players want to bring in their background reading, which is often Lord of the Rings. I think it's very clever that it's addictive and the orcs like it, so they fight with each other to get some more. I think that's clever, and okay, if you want to make it addictive to humans, and I guess if you want to expose humans to it, it follows a certain logic to make it addictive to humans too. I would think that the withdrawal would be titanic, but it's a neat idea, and I like it. I like to hear when people flesh out little things. I suffer from that affliction myself. I'll be writing an adventure, and all of a sudden I write 340 words fleshing out some little detail. So I understand that, and I appreciate it, and I salute it. Okay, I got one. All it said is Thanksgiving is in October. Well, I'm guessing that's from a Canadian listener, because I understand theirs is earlier than ours. But as I'm from Ohio, which is located plumb in the center of the country, I go by their dating system. What character class or race is your favorite, and which classes or race is your least? Well, if we're going with a race, I've always enjoyed playing dwarves. I like their stoicism. I like their ferocity in battle. Admittedly, my first my second adventure that I ever played at the first Gen Con, it's not Gary Con, Gen Con that I went to, I played a dwarf who killed a bunch of stuff and got real lucky. So okay, but I always liked I always liked the dwarves in Tolkien stuff. They were acerbic, and in fact, I liked him in the books a lot better than I liked him in the movies. So I'd have to say that that's probably my favorite, in me to play a dwarf. And I don't agree with levels on dwarves, but I don't care to be a dwarven magic user. I want to be a big badass dwarven fighter and run around like a 4-foot tank, dealing out lethal blows. Least favorite. Well, there's two I really despise. If you listen to any of these before, you probably know what I'm going to say. One's a paladin and the other is the monk. The paladin, back up. Take that back. I have found very few people that play a paladin that is fun for the whole party. They seem to think that the job comes with a stick up your hind end and a moral code that if you can't follow it, you have to follow on your sword or slay everything around you. That said, they can be played well. I despise monks. Way overpowered, silly, way overpowered. Too many skills and abilities. Despise them. All right, here's some heavy philosophy. I'm going to combine two heavy philosophies, and I'm going to skip to this one. All right, this is the guy I mentioned, or I'm assuming it's a guy, and from the handle, I'm pretty sure it is. Well, it took me a couple of weeks to get caught up to the current broadcast, but I made it. I love listening to this stuff. Well, sir, I salute your constitution and your tenacity, and I hope you enjoyed the trip. All right. Next one. This was a comment in regard to hating what the other people do because it isn't what you like. And I made this statement that it made as much sense as me saying I hated 5 cards stud simply because I like to play Hold'em. Why do people care if someone hates what they love? That's a heavy philosophical question, and while I don't have any degrees in psychology or psychiatry, I think I have some ideas on that. If I have reached a point many, many decades ago that other than the people I cared for, excuse me, I'm a little dry tonight. Other than the people that I cared for, I didn't give a shit what anybody else thought. I just didn't. I did what I had to do a job. I did what I had to be acceptable enough to perform a job, to make money. And when I was a soccer coach, I coached my way. I didn't care if anybody else liked it or didn't. And I have no idea if anybody didn't like it. Well, I'm unusual in that regard. I understand that. Because we were raised to worry about what other people thought. Because how many times were we admonished? You did what? Oh, what will other people think? Oh, you're going to embarrass the whole family. Oh, okay. Don't bring shame. Don't bring attention. So we were raised to pay attention to what other people thought. Okay, that became ingrained. So now we're happily chugging along. And we decide we like something, and we say we like that something. And somebody doesn't like that something. And so now we have this conflict going on. And as you can see, it gets very confusing. How dare you attack what I hold dear? Don't make waves. Worry about what other people think. It's all very conflicting. It's easier to say, you don't share my beliefs, therefore you're them, and we're us. And then because we're us and you're them, there must be something intrinsically wrong with whatever you believe. And see, this is an ingrained thing. I don't I don't know. I don't have a magic pill or a mantra. I think it's silly. I don't care if people don't care for the games that I talk about playing. I don't care if people think that some of the games that I like, they don't like. I don't care. Why should I? Now, if it's one of my friends and they go, oh man, I think you're full of it for liking this, I'd engage them. Why? Why do you think that? But only if it was somebody that I cared about, someone whose opinion I valued, someone who was a person that I valued, whose opinion mattered to me. This senseless shouting and screaming at people you don't see, I don't know, some tribal thing. Stupid. Just completely stupid. I don't understand it. There's no need for it. You like doing your thing, I like doing mine. I don't care. As long as my thing isn't interrupting you or bothering you or creating an odor or a fire hazard or whatever, why would you care? And if you do care about it, well, I don't care. Now, if I value you, if you're a trusted neighbor that I enjoy, well, then I will make accommodations. I don't know. One of so I had a discussion about this. It was, for some reason, when I was younger, probably 11, 12, somewhere in there, I developed a fascination for nonfiction military history. The era I was raised by a veteran from the Pacific, baby boomer. I was on the leading edge of the baby boom. I was born in 49. But I developed a massive interest in it. I was raised in the Midwest. Went into the military because I thought it was, I wasn't I went into the military. I enlisted in the Navy to keep from being drafted. Not because I thought anything was wrong with it. I just didn't want to go into combat. And decided to do 4 years in the Navy and ended up working on the flight deck, which was even more dangerous than combat. But anyway, I didn't want to be a grunt. I wanted to get an education. So I went into the Navy and got an electronics education. And it was in the Navy that I first started studying through a board game that Ed Studer and I played many, many times together called 1914. I began to understand what war really meant. Now, this is kind of odd, I admit, because here I'd been in the service for almost 2 years. And we were playing this, and I turned over. To those who don't know, 1914 is an old Avalon Hill board game with a gazillion counters. It's the entire Western Front of the First World War, and it's a system called step reduction. Every time a unit loses a combat, it gets knocked down a step. Corps become divisions, become regiments, etc., battalions, etc., etc. And I was playing with Ed one day, and I flipped it over, and I realized that I just obliterated 32,000 men. And that was a aha moment. Whoa, let's not be so cavalier about this. This is serious. And so I started thinking about war and making war. And I had come to the realization that this war that I was caught up in and I was getting ready to go become part of was not really a let's win at war, but a more, well, let them do some stuff, but not enough. Anyway, it was a war game that made me come to understand the terribleness of real war. And I'm glad for that. And by the time I came back from Nam, I was very much anti-Nam, simply because they wouldn't let us win. I'd learned from playing war games that you have to play to win. So anyway, that's my profundity for the night. What's coming up? Well, just had Thanksgiving. I hope you had a good time. I did. Don't have any cons coming up until February, when I'm going out to Total Con. And I believe I'm going to I know I'm going to Gary Con. And I'm probably going to Texas. And I'm probably going to Maine. But that's all I know about for sure right now. And 2 probablys, 2 for sures, and a maybe. In the meantime, I'll be back next week with another one of these. But only if you send me comments, send me questions. Help me out. Because you got to dangle the worm that'll make my fish of recollection leap up out of the pond. Boy, with that, it must be getting late. Dodata Govi. Oh, hello. I'm still figuring out when this thing starts. Welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Last man around when them rates went down. Calling Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine. He's a curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard brain. PSR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.